Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum students. Topic for today's week is coordination and response 1, the nervous system. And in this topic, the lesson plan is as we will discuss neuron, its structure and function, then central nervous system, parts of brain and their function, and at the end we will discuss past papers of homeostasis, which was the topic for the last week. Now, before starting with the formal lesson, you have to see these objectives which we will achieve at the completion of this lesson, that you will be able to define the coordination term coordination in mammals, identify parts of brain, and you are able to describe the function of parts of the brain in terms of coordination and regulation of body functions. First, we will start with coordination in mammals. Now, coordination in the mammal is the way in which receptors detect stimuli and then nerve impulses are sent to the effectors. In the last topic, as I have explained you, that stimuli is any change in the outer environment. Receptors are the sense organ which receive that change and effector which respond to that change. So, stimuli is the change in the internal or external environment, and receptor is the sense organ which is receiving that stimuli, and effector are the parts of the body which respond to that stimuli. In mammals, coordination is carried out through the activities of the nervous system and endocrine system. So two systems are involved, nervous system and endocrine systems. So nervous coordination is brought about by the transmission of nerve impulses between receptors and effectors through nerve fibers. So nervous coordination impulses or change is being taken through the nerve impulse from the receptors to the central nervous system, and then from the central nervous system it is brought back to the effector organs through nerve fibers. Endocrine coordination is helping the coordination in releasing the hormones which are secreted from the endocrine glands. What is nervous coordination? Nervous coordination is brought about by the central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system includes brain and spinal cord, and peripheral nervous system include cranial nerves and spinal nerves. Cranial nerves are the nerves which are associated with the brain, and spinal nerves which are arising or associated with the spinal cord. Before starting with the brain, we have to discuss the structure of neuron. Neurons make up nervous system in mammal. Each neuron is divided into two parts, cell body and nerve fiber. Cell body is a mass of cytoplasm. It has nucleus inside and it is called ganglion. Nerve fibers and cytoplasm processes of neurons, and there are two types. One is dendron and the other is axon. Dendron transmit nerve impulses towards the cell body and axon transmit nerve impulses away from the cell body. So keep in mind this dendron and axon work opposite to one another. Nerve fibers are protected by a layer of fatty tissues which act as an insulator. Now in the next slide you can see the structure of a neuron with the complete labeling. I think with this diagram you will understand how neuron look like and what are the parts. Now in the human central nervous system there are three types of neurons: sensory neurons, motor neurons and associated neurons. Sensory neurons transmit nerve impulses from the receptors, that means from the sense organ to the central nervous system. Motor neurons transmit nerve impulses or messages coming from the central nervous system to the effector, which has to respond to that stimuli or change. The axon branches at its ends to manifold or motor and plates which are attached to the muscle fiber. So axon start giving out its branches at the motor end plates, which are attached to the muscle fiber. Now we are talking about nerve fibers. So nerve fibers, or a nerve, is consisting of a bundle of nerve fibers. These are very small and minute and thread-like fibers which are bundled together, and they are surrounded by a sheath of connective tissue which protect them. Impulses do not jump from one fiber to another because of the presence of fatty substances in the nerve. In sensory nerve, there may be ganglion where the cell bodies are situated. Cell nerve fibers, they are found inside the central nervous system to have the insulating fatty layers. In this slide, you can see nerve impulse transmitted in the nerve fiber. Its stimulation of the receptors initiating the nerve impulse, and this follow all or none principle. All impulses are alike regardless of the site from which they are fired off. From which they are fired off mean from which they are taken in. The impulses travel quickly in one direction from dendrons to the axon in the same path. Now, how the nerve impulses are transmitted across the synapse. Neurons are not in direct contact with each other. Keep in mind this, neurons are not directly connected with each other, and a small gap called synapse exists between two neurons. A nerve impulse needs to jump across the synapse as to travel from one end of the axon to dendron or of another neuron. So, how the neurons are passing on the nerve impulses? From one neuron, nerve impulse has to jump to the synapse and then to pass on to the next neurons, or from axon to dendron. In this slide, you can see the structure of the synapse and the other associated nerves with them. Ending of the axon secretes a chemical which diffuses into synapse and stimulates the next neuron to pass through the impulse. This chemical is unstable and will be destroyed after completing its task. Presence of synapse enable nerve impulse to travel only from one axon to one neuron to dendron to another neuron. It also ensures the high level of nervous coordination. Now the next is central nervous system. The central nervous system, as I have told you earlier, is consisting of brain and spinal cord. Central nervous system, brain. Now brain is enclosed in a cavity which is called cranium of skull, while spinal cord is enclosed in vertebral column. CNS is also enveloped in 3 layers of meninges, and between the inner 2 layers is a cavity filled with cerebrospinal fluid. Here it is indicated through this diagram, the spinal cord, brain and nerves, which are showing you the central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. Now, what is the purpose of cerebrospinal fluid? It is acting as a cushion for absorbing external shock and protecting the brain. It nourishes the neurons and providing them oxygen and food, and it also filled up cavity called ventricle in brain and in the central canal of the spinal cord. It also helps in preventing collapse of central nervous system. Now, brain is divided into 3 main parts. One is cerebellum and medulla oblongata, as you can see in this diagram as well. Cerebellum is the frontal or front part, and it covers the major area of the brain. Then after this lies the cerebellum, and under the cerebellum the last part of the brain is medulla oblongata. Now cerebellum is, as you can see in this diagram, is divided into 2 parts or 2 hemispheres which are controlling different functions. Now it lies in the front of the brain and divided into 2 cerebral hemisphere or 2 parts. Now each part is called hemisphere. Surface of the cerebellum is highly folded to increase the surface area of coordination of thinking, memory, reasoning, imagination, learning and voluntary action. It is divided into 3 functional areas. Sensory area, that means this part of the brain is receiving impulses from the receptors or sense organ. motor areas send out the impulses to the effectors, and associated areas correlate impulses from different receptors and assist in producing appropriate responses. In this diagram you can see that what are the nerves, sensory nerves and motor nerves, how they are taking the messages towards the brain. The next part, or the second part after cerebrum, is cerebellum. It lies below the back part of the cerebellum, and it is responsible for muscular coordination, and it helps in balancing the body or control of the body balance. Damage of cerebellum will lead to loss of ability to maintain balance. The last part after cerebellum is medulla oblongata. Lies at the floor of the cerebellum. It is dealing with reflex center of the coordination, controlling involuntary actions such as breathing, heartbeat, swallowing, coughing, sneezing, and salivation. Damage of the medulla oblongata may lead to death. With this, I will end up my lesson. I hope you have understood all the parts or all the things which are explained. And the last part of the planning of this week planning is, the last part of this week planning is past paper. You have to do past papers of homeostasis from your book Topical Red Spot, and you are instructed to do the past papers of year 2015 till 2018 from above mentioned book. I think in C1 you have bought, all of you have bought this Topical Red Spot book, and you have to solve MCQs and structured questions which will be helpful for the next week topic test. So at the end I will recap my lesson. In the beginning I have explained you certain objectives which we have to achieve. I think by the end of the lesson I am able to achieve. First, I have explained you about the coordination in mammals, how it is being brought about, and what is coordination in mammals. Then I have explained you about the neurons, its structures and its function. The next, I have explained one by one the parts of the brain, central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. If there is any query, please do inform me. I am there. I hope I have cleared the concept and you have understood everything. Enjoy your life, stay at home and stay healthy. Thank you so very much.